You guys ever see like the video of like the weather lady, or I think it was a dude, but she's in water like up to here, and she's like, "Whoa, the storm's crazy," and her umbrella's like this. And then behind, there's just like two college kids just walking across in the back.
Right, it cuts to a wide shot.
Like, why do they f***ing do that?
So, did you guys hear that Trump has been indicted again?
Yeah.
The third time.
What's this one for?
This one's, I think it's for January the 6th.
The insurrection.
Oh,
yeah.
So they're just, you think that...
Wait, so the recent one before this was the Stormy Daniels one? Right?
Documents.
Oh yeah, the documents.
Yeah, the first one was the Stormy Daniels one.
What's going on, man? Because it's so like, I don't understand.
What do you think's going on, Joe?
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think? What's your theory?
What's your
What's
take?
the boys think?
I have multiple sources that I like to see, you know. I like to see mainstream media, I like to see private journalism, I like to take different sides because for some reason mainstream media seems to be all in a consensus and there's no other position but one. Which makes me go, what's really going on here?
It's fishy when multiple companies have one voice.
Yeah, is it? This is pre-trial, so it's like, how can they have a decision and a position before a verdict and all the evidence is out? So it's like they predetermined the decision. So I was just like, that's so fucking weird. And it's so conveniently like timed to where the election is coming up.
That's the weirdest part.
And then they throw all this shit right before the election. So I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I wonder why they did that.
You think it's just to set something up for the election for next year, huh?
No, I don't. I think that'd be a conspiracy.
Almost like.
Well, I mean, the election's 2024. They had how many years after he left office to deal with this shit? Does it really take that many years to throw all these things at him?
Yeah.
I'm just like, you knew about all of it during his presidency. So I'm like, well, I mean, January 6th was, that had to happen first.
And the documents thing happened after, too.
Yeah.
Oh. After his presidency?
After his presidency.
But it does seem fishy where Biden doesn't want to debate, and then the person that he is supposed to debate is being thrown away.
You mean RFK? Or are you talking about Trump?
Trump.
His leading political opponent is Trump.
Yeah, his leading political opponent.
Which is that's the scariest part, I think, for a lot of people. It's like,
if they see it.
I think it's scary. I'm not gonna say in a lot of people. I think it's scary.
But then the mainstream media watchers, they're like, "Oh, Trump's such a bad guy. Look what's happening," you know. But so they don't really actually see what's happening.
Yeah.
Well, if there's already a sitting president, right? That party, like right now we have Biden, and the party typically doesn't have a primary to replace the sitting president,
right?
Because they have a higher chance of winning a second term. That doesn't really go down. So I know
it's not customary.
It's not. So then when the Democratic Party and some people want to compete with Biden, like let's say RFK right now, that makes sense. Why it's like why, right? Because everyone's got Biden's support. But on the flip side, there has never been a time where there isn't a presidential debate.
Well, there's going to be debates eventually, right? Like the primaries is different because
no, I mean, but then the actual when there's going to be a Republican primary.
Yeah.
And then
and there'll be a debate between the candidates, obviously.
But Biden wants to sit out on it.
Yeah, he doesn't want to debate.
No, I'm saying not.
They have to though.
Not in the primary phase, during the general.
Right, during the general, but he has to, right? Yeah. Okay, so he can't opt out of that.
No, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, they did last run. They canceled one of the debates because Trump got COVID, if you remember.
Yeah, but that's different from.
Yeah, it's different from. There's a commission for presidential debates, and they're supposed to do 3.
Yeah.
But the thing that's I think scary for people is, this is your political opponent, and you're trying to imprison them, and that's what it gives people pause, if you will, right? Yeah. People are like this.
Raise an eyebrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Something's happening over here.
And what they're getting him for, right? They say he tried to replace the government and shit. But like in this speech, this is the craziest part. In the speech that he gave on January 6th, he says, "Go to the Capitol peacefully and patriotically." What part of that is like, go take it over, motherfuckers, and burn it down, or whatever?
Didn't he write on Twitter to stop certain shit after they went overboard?
It's like an hour later, but yeah. But this is before anything happened. He says, go peacefully and patriotically. And Every time that I see reporting on this topic, I never see that included in its fucking.
I've never even heard that.
Exactly.
When we were at January 6th, they told everybody was very calm. Everybody was walking through real chill, and it wasn't as crazy as it was on the news.
Yeah, when you were there, like it was
there.
totally chill.
Totally chill.
When Nick was out there waving the swastika,
Yeah.
and he was calling me.
Which is the American flag.
This is what you get for speaking up.
I was waving that American flag, bro.
I'm glad Nick actually opened up and told us a real story about himself.
Yeah, this is the year I'm not going to deflect anymore.
That's awesome, dude. You picked a good topic for that.
You picked a good timing for that too.
Yeah.
The rally started in Pasadena. We just rode that thing all
The
way.
martyr of JKnews.
It begins now.
But yeah, peacefully and patriotically, you never heard of it, right?
Honestly, that's
No,
the
I
first
know
time.
that's what he wrote. I mean, this is why I was conflicted, is because like I followed I was watching what was happening. I saw the tweet, and then I was like, when they're reporting it, it's different from what actually happened, and I'm like, why are they doing this? Like, what's the point of either omitting or redirecting or rephrasing? I'm like, what's the end goal here?
I just prefer it when they don't treat us like we're little kids and they just give you all the information and let you decide for yourself. But ever since that day, it's like, here's how it is, and here's why it was the worst thing that ever happened in the world, and you just need to know it was the worst thing that ever happened. And I'm like, okay, but you're telling me it's the worst thing that ever happened. Just give me all the information.
Yeah. Or just show the footage, because like
Exactly.
it's like the weirdest thing when you can just tell that everybody's wanting it to seem worse than it is. And then on the flip
Yeah.
side, you can live by a riot and you see the coverage versus what you saw with your own eyes, and they're making it to be mostly peaceful.
Yeah, because if you see the footage from the hallways, it's like the people that stormed the Capitol and the cops are just walking peacefully.
Looks like a tour guide.
Yeah, they're just like walking peacefully.
Yeah, it looked like he was showing them where the bathroom was,
Yeah.
and that's like.
Norm Macdonald had a tweet back then, like, because we could all watch it live. It was happening on people's cell phones and shit. And he said, I love when the violent terrorists were respecting the velvet ropes in the Capitol.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say that like that shit isn't supposed to happen or that it wasn't bad, but like let it be what it is. Like stop being like, oh, look at, we need to remember this day forever.
I think that's what I don't like is how the media is trying to tell us how to think,
Yes.
which makes me resist their narrative even more and go, what the fuck really happened? And then when the real footage comes out, and the guy with the raccoon hat is just hanging out with the cop, and they're just walking through hallways.
They're looking around like.
I do think like so. I would say what happened was disrespectful.
It was still fucked up.
It was
Yeah.
fucked up.
It's still fucked
It's
up.
like
The riot part was fucked up. Like the breaking windows and like.
yeah, that shit was
Exactly,
fucked
yeah.
up. But
Right.
did they storm the Capitol? And
They try to
fucking-
replace the government.
Was
No!
Yeah, no.
It was a bunch of fucking.
Did a couple grandmas fall off, some buildings? Yeah, a little bit.
You guys ever see like the video of like the weather lady, or I think it was a dude, but she's in water like up to here, and she's like, "Whoa, the fucking storm's crazy!" and her umbrella's like this. And then behind, there's just like two college kids just walking across in the back.
Right, it cuts to a wide shot.
Why do they fucking do that?
Good view.
Anderson Cooper got caught doing that too. He was like in a canoe. He's like, it's fucking crazy out here. And same shit. There's like a truck in the background just driving with like a little bit of water on the tires.
It's like there's what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
It's drama.
Yeah. It sells.
It's the opposite part that just bugs me more, because like on Melrose, my friend had a shoe store next to the Starbucks on Melrose and Stanley. His whole store got burned down during the BLM riots. Imagine what it feels like to be him, watching the news act like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And act like everything was fine, and you lost your whole livelihood. Him and his father have had that store for like 40 years. And he had to move because they didn't have any other place. And they're on a lease that existed from so long ago that he can't get that price.
Can afford, yeah.
So it's like he's out of the business, and he has to watch people act like, oh, everything was fine. It was just a bunch of like, nothing happened. Nothing broke out. Like, dude, that place was charred and it was gone, and for no reason. He was not even a Republican.
I just own a shoe store.
Yeah, he just happened to be there.
Trying to sell some shoes.
And the stupidest thing is that he's next door to the Starbucks, which they could have burned that shit down.
Wow.
But they didn't, because it wasn't about trying to like stick it to any corporate man.
need that
It's just a
caffeine,
fucking
though.
random ass thing. Yeah.
I think like, regardless of politics, right? What's probably the worst thing that's hurting America is mainstream media. Because they just care about clicks. It's a business.
Yeah.
They need views, they need clicks, they need to do the most extreme shit to make people scared, to make people think a certain way. So they'll watch, they'll stay glued to the television, whatever. And they have no like accountability for the damage that they do to Americans. So like whatever narrative they have to sensationalize or make it crazy, or maybe they don't like a certain dude because like, you know, they're sponsored by Pfizer and this guy's talking about shit about the vaccine or whatever. And instead of just having like let them speak freely so we can make the decision on our own, they're like, let's stamp them out because our sponsors aren't gonna like this or whatever it is, right? And then now, like, I think growing up, at least for me, I've always was like, why the fuck do people, like journalists do this on the news where they interrupt, they disrupt the person that they're interviewing. It's so fucking rude. They don't let them speak. And then I'm like, I like this new form where people just have conversations and you can hear the thoughts of the person they're trying to interview instead of being an obnoxious interviewer who's trying to build like a narrative, right? Another one is like the announcer voice. And I know there was like a standard style of journalism where people would do it, but it's so fucking fake.
So fake.
That I think like a lot of us just tune out when we hear that fake
Even when Ron
announcer
DeSantis
voice.
starts talking, I'm like, I don't hate Ron DeSantis because he was better on COVID than most governors.
Yeah.
Especially our fucking governor.
But that politician double speak, all that shit.
When I hear the
Yeah.
voice and the tone and the tenor,
Yeah.
and it just reminds me of every politician like in the 90s and 2000s that I heard, and especially in the slogans, right?
Yeah.
Like, aren't you being a Putin apologist or a Russian pro-Russian sympathizer?
No.
It's the same shit during the 90s and during the 2000s when they're like. Oh, well, I wish you'd stick up for the American people like you stick up for Saddam Hussein. And then they get thunderous applause, right? Like, it's so easy to fucking just accuse your opponent of, like, the worst thing.
We were rewatching some of the debates, and when you're watching it, you realize you're like, fuck, this is how our country figures out who the next leader is going to be. Like, cause it's like a panel of like dudes who are 40 and up, right? They're grown ass men, and they're just talking over each other, being as petty as they can, like fucking stabbing you here, not even having a real conversation, and everyone's going fucking nuts anytime they say a slogan like that. And it's just like, what is
Well, because money's driving everything.
yeah.
You know what I realized though? I think the reason why our generation and younger is not really getting with that is because the boomer generation and their world was very corporate. So like the level of professionalism, like when you work in a big company, that's how they speak. Those are the ways they fight. It's a different culture.
Yeah.
So normal guys like us, blue collar world, whatever, like when we have conversations with people, we don't do that shit. So then in their world, if you're like middle class and above and like you're in that environment, they speak like that. Yeah. That water cooler talk, that fucking whatever they do, that boardroom shit, like that's their way of communicating. So I think like when you're in that space, that's just, you just see, it's just a different face that they have.
Yeah.
So, but the more of us that don't work for these major institutions and whatever, we don't fucking play that game. We're just like, we get to be who we are.
Yeah.
So we're like, fuck these guys, fuck the news, fuck these fucking snobby little corporate fucks. Like, we're not gonna listen to any of these fakers.
Yeah.
And then now you have like Joe Rogan, alternative media, people just having real conversations. You have politicians that are actually talking about things that people care about.
There's a counterculture, and it's actually successful.
And I think there's like anti-establishment, and now there's establishment. I actually don't see it as Republican and Democrat. I see it as people that are a part of this old world and this old system versus disruptors that are coming in, and I see a battle on both sides.
Well, that's why like RFK is like, he's kind of popping off because he's one of the only guys that's actually doing long form podcasts. So when people who are our generation listen to him talk, they go, oh well, I don't see any other traditional politicians.
You hear a full on conversation.
Yeah, so then you're like, okay, I can understand that, and I think that's the reason why people like Trump so much, because he does resonate really well with probably blue collar folks. Because when you hear him talk, he's not a traditional politician.
No, and he answers questions.
Yeah. And he doesn't have a prepared script. He just says it.
He's like, we went to the Middle East, we took the oil.
Yeah.
We took the oil.
Like he definitely
Who
has
says that?
That's fucking, that's wild that he's saying. He is, yeah.
Like he has his own style of slogans, but it's different enough where it's like, oh, this guy's different. So
You hear this? You see a
You're like,
staff
okay,
in the
I'm
back
in.
going like, oh, okay.
yeah.
I think so. A lot of people fucking hate Trump
Yeah,
for
of
good
course.
reasons, right? And I would say like I have no feelings of love or hate toward people I've never met. It's just what they represent. But if I had to say something positive of what he did to our politics and everything, is he brought real conversations. And what I mean by real conversations is this fucking fake doublespeak shit that politicians do. Yeah. When he was asked, and they try to corner him about all the stuff, right? Do you remember even Dave Chappelle said this, where he was like, yeah, the system's corrupt. I fucking benefit from it. I use it. Yeah. And then he goes, and if you guys want the tax laws changed, just ask her, Hillary. Yeah. Her and her buddies fucking.
And he points to the donors in the crowd.
And then he goes, they all benefit from it.
That's a hard ass moment.
And then I'm like,
he invited Juanita Broderick to the fucking debate. The chick that says that Bill Clinton raped her.
Yeah.
That was the most gangster shit I've ever seen.
And then for me, I'm like, this is exactly what we need. It's like accountability from these fucking lying ass politicians.
That's what we never get.
Right. That are like, okay, you guys are doing this wrong, you guys are doing this wrong. And I'm like, yeah, but you guys are benefiting from all the things that you're condemning others for. And people can't see that.
And dude, remember when Trump said, Obama is spying on me? And everyone's like, this guy's fucking stupid. This is so dumb. That's all been proven. Yes, Obama was spying on him. They were literally spying on his campaign. They put operatives in his campaign, like feds in his campaign to spy on his campaign. And then the Steele dossier, that document that says he hired hookers and all this shit, and like he was peeing on hookers in Russia or whatever. That was all bullshit, and it was all paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. Yeah. And he was saying all that back then, too, and they said he's fucking stupid for that, and that's a conspiracy theory. That's all been 100% proven, but nobody gives a shit, and it's like not even a scandal.
That's why I hate the whole, like, regardless of what politicians are saying, I hate the filter that has to go through mainstream media on what actually gets reported.
Yeah, they pick and choose.
Can't just give you the info.
Yeah, mainstream media will never talk about Logan Paul without bringing up the Japan shit. They'll never talk about PewDiePie without bringing up the Jew shit. But they'll talk about something Biden just said about his stance on gays without bringing up what it used to be. Yeah, they'll talk about something Kamala said about the black community without bringing up stuff that happened with weed back
where
then.
she incarcerated a ton of black men.
They'll just erase the fucking past, but then you can see what side they're on.
Yeah.
And it's like so clear, like now more than ever. It's like kind of tiring.
That's why people really aren't watching them anymore, honestly. I mean, they watch them more than us, unfortunately. but
that's why Tucker's like going crazy. Like his shit is going through.
Yeah, Tucker's more of like a YouTuber than a fucking reporter nowadays.
What I liked about Tucker is he admitted, I was a part of the media problem.
Yeah.
He was like, I actually supported the war in Iraq. I supported the war in Afghanistan. I was like, we need to get our revenge because I believed all that shit. Yeah. And he goes, now I understand, like, we went in there for nothing.
He's trying to make reparations.
That's so human of him to even admit that.
I've never heard accountability from any of these fucks. Ever. Imagine George W. actually saying that instead of saying like, we had to do it.
And I don't believe that. I don't believe it's pandering either because it's so not to his benefit in every direction to say that. Yeah. Like he's fucking himself in other ways by admitting that. So I don't think it's like, it's not a pander to me. I'm like, oh, okay. There's an expense.
Remember when Obama's only scandal was a tan suit?
How dare he?
But you know what's crazy to me is like we love RFK. Yeah. And he's Democrat, right? Yeah. But someone will listen to this conversation and think we're a bunch of fucking
right-wingers.
And then they're trying to paint Robert F. Kennedy as a right-winger when he's a Democrat his whole fucking life.
Like Ryan's saying, he's now an anti-Semite. Every time they mention him, he's an anti-Semite now. Yeah.
Why is that?
Because he said he was at a dinner and he talked about how there was a report that COVID was bioengineered to attack certain races, but it excluded Ashkenazi Jews or whatever. And he's just stating a fact from a report. And they're like, that's anti-Semitic because basically someone engineered COVID to kill everyone but the Jews.
But he said another group too. He said the Jewish and another group. And then they conveniently forget.
But he's talking about somebody else's report. That's like us talking about something that we read on JK and they're like, this is what they think. Right. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, that's what happened.
I was calling a chick a gold digging slut because it said it in an article.